Did you know that if you don't have the exact word to describe an emotion, your brain might actually struggle to feel it at its maximum intensity? Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild concept when you really stop to think about it.
It really is. Today, we are looking at this fascinating document that, well, on its surface, it's designed to help English learners express joy. But looking closer, the actual mechanics of what it's teaching offer this profound lesson in psychology for all of us.
Right, regardless of what your native language is.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. I want you to think about a plain cheese pizza. You like pizza, right?
Who doesn't?
Right. But if you sit down and eat a slice of plain cheese pizza for dinner on Monday, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday,
They're going to get so sick of it.
you are. Eventually, that exact same slice is going to taste incredibly boring. You'd be desperate for peppers, mushrooms, like anything to change the texture. Yet, neurologically speaking, we kind of do this with our joy every single day.
You really do.
We feel a positive emotion, and we default to the exact same phrase. We just say, I am happy.
What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism driving that repetition, which is cognitive ease. Our brains are incredibly efficient.
Which is, what, just a polite way of saying our brains are lazy?
Yeah, pretty much. Inherently lazy. When we experience a positive emotion, the brain just reaches for the most accessible, low-friction label in our vocabulary.
And happy is the ultimate catch-all word.
Right. But when you rely entirely on that single phrase to describe, every positive sensation, your communication and your internal experience become completely flat. You are essentially serving yourself and the people you talk to plain cheese pizza every day.
That makes so much sense, because think about it. If you just won the lottery and you say, I am happy, and then you find a perfectly smooth rock on the sidewalk and say, I am happy.
You're doing a massive disservice to the lottery win.
Exactly. You're effectively rationing your own joy by rationing your vocabulary. The goal of our deep dive today is to give you those missing toppings, to expand that emotional palette. So if we want to break this linguistic rut, the logical place to start isn't with the explosive emotions.
No, you have to start with the subtle ones, the baseline.
Right, the foundational toppings. We're looking at words in the source like glad, cheerful, and pleased.
The quiet joys. And it's vital to recognize that these aren't just synonyms you can pull out of a hat randomly.
They aren't.
No, they categorize entirely different psychological states.
Yeah.
Glad, for instance, is the softest of the three. It's an acknowledgement of a gentle, fleeting, positive moment.
Like, I'm glad it's Friday, or I'm glad you called.
Exactly. It's a low-stakes word. It signals warmth without requiring a massive output of energy.
Okay, it's casual. But then, looking at a word like pleased, the source examples are things like, the teacher is pleased with my homework, or pleased to meet you. I kind of have to push back a little here.
Oh, go ahead.
Doesn't pleased sound a bit stiff? Like in everyday conversation, it almost feels like corporate speak compared to just being glad.
It does feel more formal, yeah. But that formality serves a very specific psychological function.
How so?
Well, pleased implies that a standard has been met or an expectation has been fulfilled. It is deeply tied to the psychology of satisfaction and outcome.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so when a teacher is pleased with your homework, it's not just a warm, fuzzy feeling. It's an acknowledgement of competence. It's the dopamine hit of a closed loop.
And glad doesn't capture that sense of achievement at all.
Not at all.
That makes perfect sense. Like, you wouldn't be cheerful about finishing a massive spreadsheet. You'd be pleased with the result.
Exactly. Which brings up cheerful. This one operates totally differently.
Right, because the source says you can have a cheerful neighbor, or you can walk into a room and say, the yellow flowers make it look cheerful.
Yeah, because cheerful isn't just an internal reaction to an event. It's an ongoing state of being that is projected outward. It's a radiating energy.
But a room can't feel an emotion.
No, obviously a room doesn't possess the capacity to feel, but it can project a frequency that we categorize as cheerful. This touches on linguistic determinism.
Which is the idea that language shapes our reality, right?
Precisely. By actively labeling a space or a person as cheerful, you are training your brain to recognize and absorb that specific radiating frequency of joy rather than just dumping it into the generic bucket of happy.
Wow. And that outward radiation is exactly what primes us for the next layer here. Because single words like glad or pleased are great for specific triggers. But how do we describe our overarching state when we are just having a genuinely good day?
The everyday states of being.
Yeah. We have two main phrases in the text. I feel great and I'm in a good mood. And notice how these two are fundamentally split between biology and psychology.
That distinction is crucial.
Right, because the phrase I feel great is almost always tied directly to our physical environment and health.
Yes. You say it when you've slept a full 8 hours, or when you wake up and the sun is shining. It's a biological assessment that your engine is running perfectly.
But conversely, being in a good mood is strictly an internal emotional weather system.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
You can be physically exhausted, running on 2 hours of sleep, but still be in a good mood because you're listening to your favorite album.
Exactly.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the distinction between your physical state and your psychological mood is profound, because your mood dictates your social priming.
Social priming. Wait, unpack that for us.
Sure. When you are in a good mood, you are primed for pro-social behavior. You find yourself smiling at strangers or, being unusually patient in traffic when nothing extraordinary has actually happened to warrant it.
So feeling great means you have the physical battery power to run a marathon.
Right. But being in a good mood means your brain has lowered its defensive barriers, making you receptive to positive human connection.
Which leads perfectly into how we navigate those connections. If being in a good mood naturally makes us more receptive to others, how do we react when they come to us with their own wins?
That's the mirror of joy.
Yeah. Say a friend walks up and tells you they just got a massive promotion or they finally passed their driving test. I think a lot of us default to saying, I am so happy for you.
It's the standard response.
It is, but there's a powerful alternative highlighted in the source. That's wonderful. So what does this all mean for you, the listener, in a real conversation? Why is "that's wonderful" a better tool in that moment?
Because it fundamentally changes the focus of the interaction. In psychology, there's this concept called capitalization.
Capitalization.
Yeah, capitalization is how we respond when someone shares good news. When you say, I am happy for you, the subject of the sentence is still I.
Oh, wow. I never noticed that.
You are anchoring their achievement to your own emotional state. But when you use the phrase, that's wonderful, it acts as an active conversational bridge.
Because the subject becomes the event itself.
Yes. That is wonderful. You're taking the spotlight off yourself and shining it entirely on their news.
That is so subtle, but so powerful.
It is a highly active, constructive way to reflect joy back to someone else. You are validating their reality. You are confirming that their news is objectively great, completely independent of how it makes you feel.
You're just giving them the floor.
In the mechanics of human connection, saying, that's wonderful, tells the other person, I see the magnitude of your joy. I agree that it is joyous, and I am standing in it with you. You give them full permission to celebrate.
I love that framing. So, okay, we've covered the quiet baseline of joy, we've explored the biology and psychology of everyday good moods, and we've talked about validating others.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have. But what happens when the feeling gets too big for quiet words? Let's talk about the summit of the mountain, when happiness gets loud.
The peak experiences.
Yes. We have 3 fantastic expressions here: thrilled, overjoyed, and the idiom on top of the world.
The classic idiom.
It really is. And I don't want to just explain what on top of the world means. I mean, we all know it means feeling great after a major win, like passing a life-changing exam.
Right, the feeling of elevation.
Exactly. But it's fascinating how often human language uses spatial metaphors to describe emotion. Why is joy always associated with elevation?
Well, it comes down to embodied cognition.
Embodied cognition.
Yes. Our brains map abstract concepts onto physical experiences to make sense of them. Throughout human evolution, physical elevation like standing on a hill, being upright and alert, has been associated with safety, dominance, and health.
And being low or slouching is sickness or danger.
Exactly, defeat or danger. So when we experience a massive surge of positive emotion, our neural pathways naturally reach for metaphors of height.
You aren't just happy, you are elevated above the mundane struggles of the world.
You were literally on top of it.
That makes the idiom so much richer. But help me untangle the other two. Thrilled and overjoyed. They sound like interchangeable high-energy words to me, but the text suggests there's a distinct mechanical difference in how they function.
There is. It's a matter of volume versus containment.
Okay, volume versus containment. Break that down.
Thrilled is a high-frequency, active word. It's often associated with anticipation or a buzzing kinetic energy, like you are thrilled to go to a concert. It's an acceleration of your heart rate.
Okay, so that's the volume.
Right. But overjoyed operates on a completely different axis. Think about the prefix over. It implies that a boundary has been completely breached.
Like a dam breaking.
Exactly like a dam breaking. You use overjoyed for moments when you physically cannot contain the emotion.
Yeah.
Your favorite sports team winning a massive championship or welcoming a new baby into the family.
Oh, I see.
It is a profound, overwhelming emotion that bypasses logic and just floods your nervous system. And this raises an important question for how we navigate our own lives.
Which is,
If we have words like overjoyed to describe these massive boundary-breaking moments of human experience, how often do we blunt our own psychological peaks by defaulting to just calling ourselves happy?
oh man. Yeah, if you welcome a new baby and say, I am happy, you are using the exact same label you used when you found a $5 bill in your coat pocket.
Yes. And because of neuroplasticity, the labels we use actually inform how our brain processes the memory.
Wait, really?
Yes. If you continually use a low-wattage word to describe a high-wattage event, you risk emotional blunting. You're telling your brain, this was just a standard baseline event.
And over time, your brain might start to record those peak experiences with less intensity.
That's the danger, yes.
That is a fascinating trap we fall into. But let me challenge that for a second.
Go for it.
If I don't naturally feel that massive bursting sensation, isn't telling myself I'm thrilled or overjoyed just a form of toxic positivity? Like, am I just faking it?
That's a great point, but there's a fine line between toxic positivity and emotional granularity. Toxic positivity is denying a negative emotion and pasting a fake smile over it. Emotional granularity is about having the precise tool to match the reality of the positive emotion when it does occur.
So it's not about forcing it?
No, it's not about forcing yourself to feel overjoyed about finding a parking space. It's about ensuring that when the dam actually breaks, you don't minimize the flood by calling it a trickle.
Okay, that distinction is crucial. You want the vocabulary to match the scale of the event. Which brings us to a totally different axis of how we experience joy, and that's time.
Right, the timeline of happiness.
Yeah, happiness exists on a timeline, and the phrases we use change drastically depending on whether we are looking forward to the future or sitting in the present. Here's where it gets really interesting. The contrast between I can't wait and this makes my day.
Anticipation versus the immediate mindful moment.
Exactly. Look at how we use I can't wait. It's reserved for these massive structured future events.
Like going on a trip to Paris or a huge birthday party tomorrow.
Right. It's an aggressive buildup of dopamine. But then you look at the phrase, this makes my day, and it is used for incredibly mundane, tiny things in the present tense.
Small wins.
Yeah, someone buying you a coffee, or, like you mentioned earlier, easily finding a parking space.
And finding a parking space objectively does not compare to a trip to Paris.
Not at all.
Yet, they both have their own dedicated expression of profound joy. This touches on a deeply healthy psychological mechanism. Think about the literal words. This makes my day.
Okay.
You are taking a micro moment of free coffee, and you are crowning it as the defining narrative of your next 24 hours.
You're actively deciding that this tiny win is the heavyweight champion of your day, regardless of what goes wrong later.
Precisely. While I can't wait is about projecting your happiness into a grand future, this makes my day is an exercise in acute mindfulness and resilience.
It's staying in the present.
It's the ability to pause in the present, look at a tiny win and say, this is enough. This small thing has secured my baseline of gratitude for today.
And by verbalizing it, you're actively coding your brain to weigh that positive micro moment more heavily than the inevitable minor annoyances that will happen later.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've unpacked this entire spectrum. From the quiet baseline of being glad to the radiating energy of being cheerful. We've looked at the biology of feeling great, the boundary-breaking flood of being overjoyed, and the mindfulness of letting a coffee make your day.
It's a huge toolkit.
It is. But how do you actually install this software? Like, how do these phrases become a natural reflex so you aren't stuck eating that plain cheese pizza every day?
Well, it requires moving from passive understanding to active neuroplasticity. You can't just recognize the words, you have to physically integrate them.
And we see that modeled in the everyday scenarios in the text. We have Tom at work telling his coworker he feels great and is pleased because his boss praised his project.
You hear the satisfaction of the closed loop there.
Exactly. And then Sarah telling a friend she's overjoyed and thrilled because she passed her driving test and she can't wait to drive to the beach.
Right, but those role plays are just helpful for context. The real secret to natural usage isn't just reading scenarios. The actionable strategy is verbal repetition.
The mirror challenge.
The mirror challenge. The directive for you, the listener, is to choose one new phrase daily and say it out loud 3 times.
3 times.
Yes. You
Yeah.
can weave it into a real conversation with a colleague, or you can literally just stand in your bathroom and say it to yourself in the mirror.
I am in a good mood. I am in a good mood. I am in a good mood. I'll admit that feels a little ridiculous when you're just standing by yourself.
It feels ridiculous because you are bypassing your usual social filters. But neurologically, speaking words aloud forces your brain to process them entirely differently than when you read them silently or just think them.
How so?
You are engaging auditory processing centers and building physical muscle memory in your vocal cords. You are actively laying down a new neural pathway.
Oh, so you're basically stocking the pantry. By physically saying the word thrilled today, you're making sure it's on the shelf for your brain to grab tomorrow when that high-frequency emotion actually hits.
Exactly. You are lowering the cognitive friction required to access the more precise word, so your brain doesn't just default back to happy.
Well, this has been an incredibly layered journey. We started by trying to escape the linguistic rut of generic happiness, and we've ended up exploring how precision in our language actually dictates the depth of our reality.
We've built a much richer emotional vocabulary today, not just to sound better, but to feel more accurately.
And I want to remind you, the listener, of what I think is the most grounding piece of advice to take away from all this.
Which is?
You do not need perfect grammar or a thesaurus in your head to share your joy. A simple, honest, I feel great, or turning the spotlight on a friend with a genuine that's wonderful can completely alter the trajectory of their day.
Absolutely.
The human connection is what matters most. The words are just the vehicle that gets you there.
They are the vehicle, yes. But I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building on the idea of linguistic determinism we talked about earlier.
Okay, let's hear it.
The exercise asks what makes you happy, but let's push that a step further. If expanding your vocabulary allows you to express joy more accurately, could learning these specific words actually change your visual perception of the world?
What do you mean by visual perception?
Think back to the word cheerful. The word represents an outward radiating joy.
Right.
If you actively set an intention to look for a chance to use the word cheerful today, your brain will start scanning your environment for evidence to support that intention.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Will you suddenly start noticing the bright yellow flowers in a room that you would have otherwise walked right past while looking at your phone?
Oh, wow. The word acts as a flashlight. If you don't have the flashlight turned on, you don't even see the joy that's already sitting right there in the room with you.
Exactly.
I absolutely love that. Keep an eye out for those yellow flowers today. Until next time.